best interviewees I've ever heard.
I hope this starts the podcast.
Yeah. We're starting right here, talking about your vocal qualities and the great pre-40th year that we're not only Scott's living in, like all of us get to live in. Like all of humanity is living in
my
Scott's
pre-40th year
right now.
Which is a very exciting time to be alive. I will say it's also a very nerve-wracking time to be alive, but it's
Yes.
It's good.
Lots of anticipation. Yeah. Because it is that season. Were these shows that you were just having? Were these Lullafright shows? Or were they?
Well, 2 of them were. 2 of the 5 were Lullafright shows, and the other 3 were normies.
Can we talk about this? Like, just before we're going to talk about the record, but I this every year. This seems to become like the life of this Halloween. To call it a Halloween record isn't the right way. How do you guys describe it?
We kind of just call it our spooky record. Like we have fans that they'll come forward and say, so I love all your records. I will not listen to the Lullafrights. Because it is like I think it's the child. I think it's the child creepily talking in between that really gets people. But also it's just so like, I don't feel like we aren't off base anyway. Like I feel like we're often very everywhere. We kind of we follow our bliss, I guess. But I feel like this one was a field too far for a few people. And so I think as we've been performing this one out more, it's making more sense to people.
So I mean, for those of you just catching up,
which is everyone.
We should recap. In 2019, we went into the studio with our host this morning, Nolan Rossi, and in Nashville, and we recorded these 8 songs that were. I mean, they're spooky songs about the stories that parents tell their children in order to make them be good. And like one example is the story of La Llorona, which is this creepy story about this woman who lives in the river, and if you get too close to the river, she'll pull you in, which is terrifying. But it's also just a way of parents telling their kids not to get too close to the river. Like it's kind of practical and pragmatic, but
it feels like, so we recorded these songs, but then we released them in October of 2020 when a lot scarier things were happening in the world. And so it didn't quite take off because people were like, I don't need any more scary right now.
Things are scary enough.
But it also kind of like opens up this psychology of like, what are we actually afraid of? Like all these songs, like while they are about these monsters, they're actually about the people who create the monsters. And why are we creating these monsters? And why are we trying to control people with fear? And is there a better way? And it kind of, I'm surprised with how much, especially in the live show, we talk about and go into like mental health issues and how we go into the treatment of people who are different than us. And it has turned into a weirdly political record in that, especially because we're always performing it right before an election. Like it always comes out in this.
Wow. Yeah. I never thought about that. How Halloween is always
right before an election.
Yeah. And so like, there's this element of like unpacking human psychology and saying, okay, now that we know that there aren't monsters, there are just people, what do we do with this information? And so that's how the Lullafrights has been landing lately, and I think it does resonate, especially.
Well, it seems to be growing and like creating its own audience. Like if the audience wasn't there initially, it's like there's this thing around it. Because I remember when you were when we were working on it, when you were telling me about it, I was fascinated because I forget like what song started it, but then you both started to deep dive into cultures and other stories. Like these stories weren't all common to you. It's not like you just brought them all
Right.
from
No,
your
no, no.
childhood. Y'all did some work to like dig into histories and find out what other stories are out there.
Yeah, definitely. And it's not an American phenomenon. It is a worldwide phenomenon, you know. And so I think that definitely goes alongside, you know, that it's a human story. Like this is a very human record. Yeah, so it's been fun. I think next year we're going to plan a whole Lulla Frights weekend because now that we live in New England, everybody wants to come here for the leaf season. So we're thinking about planning like a whole pumpkin carving, perform the Lulla Frights in our local cemetery sort of weekend. We're making it a destination.
Yeah, you might as well. I mean, things like, you know, I've like spent so much time in New Orleans, and there's like all these ghost tours and cemetery tours down there, you know, so there's so many just kind of tourist mechanisms or products, you know, that people sell that obviously like this record and what you would do, and that makes total sense. People would love that.
It'll be good. We also have a local, we live in a very small town and there are no restaurants or anything here, but there is a Dead and Breakfast, which is a bed and breakfast that is decorated with skulls and has like spooky themes. And so
it's called the Deep Sleep Inn.
It is.
And their sign is in the shape of a coffin. It's awesome.
So we're teaming up with her to have like housing and stuff for so it's going to be a whole thing. The Lulla Frights is getting a little out of control, to be honest with you.
That's amazing. It's coming. There's new life coming into the into the body.
Resurrection.
The resurrection.
Yeah, the resurrection.
The zombie album.
I'm trying to think of. Yeah. Well, that is so much fun. Are there any more? I mean, tomorrow, right now when we're recording this, it's October 30th. Yeah. So tomorrow's Halloween. Is there any more shows?
No, we're done
Okay.
with the Lulla Frights. Yeah. Until next year.
Is this wrapping up your touring year?
Yeah, for the most part. We have a couple like local shows. And we're doing a conference at the end of November. But
because we're almost 40 now, so we do conferences.
That's what we do.
Yeah.
And but then we'll get started again in January with the tour down to Florida and Georgia and some of those states. Like I understand the point of Florida now that we live in New Hampshire.
Oh, definitely.
Like it has become more appealing. Especially in January and February. I get it.
Yeah. But we do have like we have one-off shows, but we particularly have an album release show coming up. That's our next big thing that we're holding just across the river. So we're in New Hampshire, but we live 1 mile away from Vermont, and the river separates us. And so across the river just means Vermont around here. Or if you're on that side, it means New Hampshire. And so we're having our album release party at our sister town hall across the river, which we're pretty excited about.
That's fun. Okay, so let's talk about the new record.
Good luck.
Yeah, to everyone. Yeah.
Good luck. Well, the first question is, the title.
It's hymns for my atheist sister and her friends to sing along to.
Okay, and this is my first question. Is this someone's actual sister?
This is my actual sister.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm listening to that first song, and that's where I'm going. I'm like, is this literal? Is this literally what Mal's sister does? Okay, let's just start there.
So we kind of started this album a couple of years ago. My sister and I both grew up in a very fundamentalist Christian household, like family compound sort of situation, and just. There were a lot of guns, and there was a lot of ideologies about God that do not kind of stand in. When you break down Christianity, it doesn't actually hold. It was a Christian nationalist household. Whew, that took me a long time to get there. And so
38 years. In fact. Yeah.
38 years. And I can finally say it. But we both have kind of, strayed from that in different ways. I count myself to be a spiritual person, and I'm still unpacking faith in a different way. But my sister, she she became an atheist, and it did not come lightly to her. It was very much studied the Bible for 2 straight years and like really got into it, trying to find answers and before she left this religion that we have grown up with, of course. And so she became an atheist. And when we would go to visit her, she and I, when she would drink enough wine, we would start singing hymns together because it is our shared history. And we still love these songs. Like these songs are like something that create an identity, and they create kind of a kinship that you can't get elsewhere. And so we noticed that like the longer that we kept visiting and doing this, the less and less wine she would have to drink before we wouldn't break into these songs. And so it became this really comfortable thing. And I told her at one point, I said, hey, someday we're going to write a whole record of atheist hymns so that you can sing them and you don't have to feel your religious baggage. And she was like, good luck. And she also said that her favorite song is the doxology. She'll tell you that dead sober. Like she loves this song. There's something about it that really creates something in her. And she found that a lot of her atheist friends also really loved this song. And so she was talking, like we were deliberating coming up with like an atheist hymn sing. And the result of that record is not so much, I mean, there are a couple of songs that I feel like are hymns or hymn-like, but it became more of a record about unpacking faith in a non-judgmental way, and unpacking faith when faith doesn't look like faith, and also maybe how to be a good neighbor when the way that you were told to be a good neighbor is to hate your neighbor.
And to keep them separate.
And to keep them separated from you, and how to kind of break that down. And so my sister now she's kind of amazing. So she joined this organization called American Atheists.
Hold up. Was she not amazing?
Well, she was. No,
so she's a neuroscientist and she works at FSU.
And she's raising 2 kids.
But here's
wow.
Yeah. Here's what makes her especially amazing. She goes to the Capitol in Tallahassee, and she it seems like on a weekly basis, and she will speak up against these laws that are being proposed that violate the separation of church and state. And so she, a few years back, we were down there when she got this award in the mail.
From American Atheist
for being the American Atheist Activist of the Year. Which is pretty amazing.
And it was like a huge freaking trophy. Like it was like a big trophy. And I was like, this is amazing. Like this is hilarious. But we're kind of jerks. And so instead of calling her American Atheist Activist of the Year, we just started calling her we called her Atheist of the Year. Like as if like she was the one who didn't believe the hardest.
Of all the people who didn't believe.
Yeah, I'm really curious about. Well, first off, that is one question. So when she went through this, so she went through those 2 years, I think you said, was it like I am an atheist? And like that's how I want to be defined by?
No, it was very much, I always thought she was an atheist, even when we were kids. Like my parents would kind of call her an atheist because she wasn't quite lining up. And but when she started telling me that she was thinking about becoming an atheist, I said, "Oh, I thought you already were." And she's like, "No, of course not."
and then like we look back, and she's like, she went to church.
Like she did all
she took her kids to church.
Yeah, she did all these things. But it was very much, that process, I think, for her was very much just trying to make sure, because the way that we grew up was you better be sure. Like everything that you do, you better be sure. Like I remember switching churches. I actually went to like a more like stringent church than my parents were going to. I changed churches, and after church we would meet back after lunch, and my dad and I would sit across from each other with Bibles in our laps, and I had to defend why I went to the church that I went to that morning. It was like, it was super intense. And so the way that she kind of went about unpacking it was kind of the same way that we were kind of raised to unpack it. And I think in a way that brought a lot of like restoration for her, that she was able to kind of get out of it the way that we got into it. At least that's the way I interpret it. Of course, she can speak to herself.
Sure.
I definitely had a different route out than she did, but it was really cool to kind of watch her do that.
Yeah. And I think what's interesting is like all the ways that she did not find, a fulfillment of her faith in the church. I think in many ways it looks like she has found that in this group that she's part of in Tallahassee called Humanists of Tallahassee. And what they do is they
feed
they
the
feed the
hungry.
hungry. They clothe, people who need clothing. They
Right.
after the hurricane came through this last month, they were some of the first to like donate supplies, and it's just this kind of beautiful thing where there's this quote that has come to mind. This story that is told by this Jewish philosopher.
We've been reading a lot of Martin Buber, and like there's that quote from when he was when he did the Hasidic tales, when he was retelling those stories, that story where he's teaching, there's a rabbi teaching all of these students, and this one kid kind of raises his hand. It's like the smart ass one, and he's like, hey, if God made everybody with a reason, then why did he make atheists? And the rabbi is like, okay, cool, we can break this down. Atheists are here to teach us true compassion, because there is nothing and no one telling them to do the right thing, and yet they are coming in and they're helping people. So the next time you find yourself, going down the street and somebody asks you for help, instead of saying, I will pray for you, you should instead become an atheist and be the one to help them. And I feel like that has been a resonating story. Even before we read that story, that has kind of been the impulse, like the impetus behind this record, because that is kind of what my sister is doing. Like, she is the person who's going in there and saying, like, I'm not going to be the thoughts and prayers, I'm going to be the hands and feet, which I think is phenomenal. Like, has changed us, by watching.
So did this whole record start with this song?
No.
No.
That was the last song.
Talk about last.
Yeah.
It was the last song.
So how were you conceptualized? Like, this is such a container for the whole record. So how did it emerge then?
We had the title first.
We had the title.
The title of the record was first. So it was
that's a funny title.
Yeah, and it was clever. It was a little tongue in cheek. And I think when we started writing this record, we were unpacking more of our religious baggage. Like, a lot of the songs that we started writing for this record did not make the cut because they were just still a little too angry. And there's a place for anger. There's a place for that sort of thing. But it wasn't accurate. It wasn't true to what we actually believed. It was just sort of like getting those last fits out for ourselves. And I think we've done enough of that up to this point that we didn't need to keep hacking away at that.
Yeah, sometimes things, I don't know, like, I love art that's provocative, but like, you can feel sometimes when an artist, when it's like almost too raw, like they're still a little too close to that situation or pain, and it's there's a certain feeling that you can feel in that, and it's I think it's interesting to see like the effect on people, like it doesn't necessarily take the message as far as it could go, I think, when you just have a little more space.
I'm totally with you. And I think that was what we learned. And I'm kind of grateful that we started this record and took so much time with it.
Because some of these songs are 4 or 5 years old and have sort of, kind of come and gone. And like, I think the oldest one that made it onto the record, we didn't actually, like, that was written during the pandemic. And we didn't think it was gonna make the cut, but like it has turned out to be one of our favorites on the record.
Which one is that?
You Get What You Get.
Yeah, it's track 9. Yeah.
It was so the record, we kind of had this like tongue-in-cheek title, and then we started finding the songs that fit in there, and then we this last summer we were like, oh, we need to put out this, like, it's just time to put out this record. We just kind of knew. And so we spent the whole month of June kind of filling out the record and finish writing it. And then we finished writing it. We'd gotten the last song done, and we were driving away to a show. And Scott just looks at me. He goes, "This song doesn't make any, or this record doesn't make any sense if we do not actually have a song about your atheist sister on it." And I was like, dang it, you're totally right. And so we set to it the next week, and we wrote My Atheist Sister, and it does totally hinge the entire record like on the back of it. Like I'm kind of amazed that it worked out. It worked out.
Yeah, no, that's beautiful that like it came together like that, because it feels like such a personal song. I mean, it does, and it like sets up the entire record, and then it, then the whole record's bookend with a beautiful. I mean, I would like when I first heard it, I was like, oh, this is the this is their doxology right here. I didn't have to like look at the title or anything. So it really helps the whole concept of the album just like all meld together so nicely. So that's amazing. I love that works out, because sometimes, a song shapes the entire thing, but I love that you were able to grab the concept and tell such a personal story that connects, the idea like just immediately.
It definitely is the most disarming too of I have found that we've been performing a few of these live, not all of them, but we've been performing a few of them live. And when we play Atheist Sister, it is very much this disarming effect on the audience, where we've had people from all like religious backgrounds come up to us and say that reminds me of this is how it made me feel. And then we start with the disarming, because I think that's kind of we're disarming ourselves too. I feel like it's a really vulnerable line for me to say, like part of the way through the song, I say, "and even believers like me." Now, if you know me, that's a confusing line, because is she a believer? What does she actually believe? Nobody really knows. But it is also like this state of vulnerability of saying, like, I'm a believer. I'm not saying in what, but I am a believer. Like I am somebody who believes, and so that vulnerability is, I think, the moment that the whole audience can kind of feel like they're on board, because they are, and because we want them to be. And so we have that song, and then you put on a song like Love Them Too, where we're saying it doesn't matter who you are. Like you have to love your neighbor. It actually doesn't matter what you believe. You have to love your neighbor if you're going to get anywhere. And so,
yeah, and you challenge everyone in that song, which is so wonderful and uncomfortable about it. It's like, did you intend to just get everyone? Did you like look down the list and like, okay, who haven't we called out yet?
Well, that was the crazy part about that song, is that when we were writing it, it was the 4th of July. And so like it was definitely like tense. Like it was a tense day for us. We weren't feeling very hopeful this 4th of July.
Yeah, it was right after the Biden-Trump debate. We were in Indiana, but we played this show at a brewery where like people from all sorts of different backgrounds got together and just had a great time. And it was just so heartening to see in an election year that that people could get together and be civil to one another.
Yeah.
And so I walked into the hotel room where we were staying, and Mallory had started this song. And
I started playing it for him, and he's like, "Damn it!"
Like, I'm gonna have to hold back tears for the next 6 months or whatever. But
yeah, but it came out like that. Like it was just so it was done. Like that song was done in 10 minutes, and it was a song. What we were talking about this weekend, what's fascinating about that song, if I do say so myself, but like what's been interesting about playing that song out is that I think for some of our previous like quote unquote political songs, because I don't feel like we're terribly political, but everything is also political. Like the personal,
like the Lullifites are political.
Yeah, everything, so, like, and so.
But what's interesting about this is
that particular song.
Yeah, is you go through and say like you have to love your neighbor, love your neighbor's neighbor, help pick a stranger to love.
Yeah, and what is different about that song in particular compared to like when we did God of War before, or when we've done any of our other songs that have kind of touched on socio-political ideas, is that instead of people coming up to us afterwards and saying, yeah, I really resonated with God of War because my, cousin does this or my friend does this, with Love Them Too, people come up and say, man, I really resonated with this song because I realized that I have not been doing this. And it is and we feel the same way about that song. Like every time we sing that song, it is still like a song that that challenges us to do better. Not, I wish someone else would hear that song so they would change. Yeah. And I think that's where we are right now too. Mm-hmm. Like that's the hope, is that like when we hear something, we're not wishing someone else would change, but we're finding ways that we can.
Yeah. At one of our shows this weekend, somebody came up, like there's a line in the song, pick that news anchor on the station you hate, whose face makes you so mad,
but you don't got an excuse.
You have to love them too. And this guy just comes up to me and he goes, man, there's this person on Fox who I can't do it. I can't love them. and it's like everybody knows that person in their life who they're just like, I have such a hard time with this person. Mm. And I don't know. I think we're really we play to mainly audiences that agree with us, socially and politically. Like,
not always, though.
Not always. Yeah.
Well, but that's how music and that's how things work. Like you're attracted to what you're attracted to, and you're looking for connection.
Yeah.
And so and we also play some places that maybe people don't agree with us, and so we try to walk the line to some degree. But I think with this album especially. And that song in particular, we're trying to, I don't know, elicit some sort of, we're trying to speak into the culture that is coming to our show and saying like, hey, let's be the people that love our neighbors. Let's be the people that love across party lines. And so
that's hard to disagree with.
It is hard to disagree with. Yeah.
Yeah. So how long have you been playing the songs out? I'm curious to hear any more stories about people's reaction to it.
About a month, you would say?
Yeah, about a month. So we recorded this in Nashville with Dave Coleman. Nolan, we would every morning we would get up. We were staying at Dave's house, and we'd take the dogs for a walk, and we'd pass your old house.
We did
in studio
every morning.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
We thought of you every morning.
Every morning. So
amazing.
And we'd go back and we started recording. At whatever time, and we had limited the album, or the instruments on this album, to only instruments that Mallory was allowed in church. So you will find guitars, pianos, organs, and handbells, and like one tambourine.
Well, can I just say, like sonically, that was one of the things that helped make the whole album click for me as I was listening to it. I think number one, whenever you make a concept album and you decide on the sound palette, it just will support the whole idea of like, this is really a conceptual album. But to the whole hymn thing and the hymn sing, it was like, yeah, these are all the instruments that you would hear or want or were familiar, even in my like past and in so many people that I know, that have come up in those traditions, so it's like sonically you're connecting and stimulating, some deep memories in people.
I love that. That makes me so happy.
Good.
Yeah.
And really rich too. I mean, it's not like, it didn't feel like anything was in there for that was superfluous, like it was just like, this is all like adding to what the song
when you limit when you limit what you can use, you have to use it intentionally. Like there's really no choice. So that's cool.
Yeah,
that makes me, that's exciting to hear.
But in doing that, we had to rely on the human voice, like churches do, and And so we asked a bunch of our friends to sing on this record, and that was really a beautiful experience because we didn't tell them what to sing. Like we kind of
No.
said, "Hey, pick this song.
Here's the
You know,
part we want you to
find a
sing on.
harmony, and
Yeah.
you know, you do you." And
Yeah. So it
so
was,
Oh,
it was not orchestrated. It was definitely just, we'll see what comes together. And it came together.
it did,
Like
yeah,
yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
It
it
was cool.
did.
yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
But yeah, we got a Flagship Romance, Ordinary Elephant, the Honey Badgers, Sam Robbins, Hallie
Neal.
Neal,
Yeah.
Alice Wallace.
Yeah. It
Um,
was a cool crew, like, it kind of, we're calling them the Congregation of Kind Souls, and they are people in the last few years who we've met on the road who have kind of become our little church. Like, whenever we need something or are feeling a certain way, like, we come together in these different ways, and we've built a community, and we are all in the same position of going out into these very rural areas or very, populated areas and singing these songs about loving other people. And what a weird job that
mhm.
is. Like, it is so weird. So, like, it was cool to have their support on this vocally to kind of reinforce that, like, that feeling in the same way that my sister and I sing hymns together and feel a certain way, like, we can still congregate with other people and have that comfort and safety of a church without needing to go to a church anymore.
Yeah. How much of that do you think is um just pure nostalgia? Meaning, like, as
Mhm.
another, I'm in my post
Yes,
40th years, Scott. So yeah, I know we're swimming in the
yeah,
same similar water. But I just go at this point in life, you just go, man. There's so many things that I did or have warm
Mhm.
feelings about, even outside of religion. That's like, oh, we just always did this for
Mhm.
summer vacation, so I just have warm
yeah,
memories about
mhm,
it, or just because, like proximity to a thing and consistency creates a feeling. But then, um, so there's the nostalgia part, but then there's also what you guys are talking about. I think of, like, community is a
Mhm.
good thing, connecting around values is a
Yeah.
good thing, so it's like, how much of it is of what we're talking about is nostalgia versus finding an updated
Yeah.
version, um, of real values that are
Hmm.
inside us.
yeah.
That
Does that
does
make
It
make
sense?
does.
sense, and I don't think
Yeah.
either motivation is necessarily wrong. We just finished listening to your Justin
Sure.
Timberlake episode, and
Oh yeah,
that
great episode, by the way.
and that
Ah.
really, like, that got us through Long Island
Thank you.
traffic. Thank you so
Yeah,
much. Like,
Yeah.
yeah.
Thanks, JT.
but that is an idea that I feel like I really resonated with and have been resonating with this record, and in the last few years, is like allowing myself to be part of this experience, even if that experience is nostalgia. Like, I used to really fight against that and be like, that's not a real feeling. That's not a real, like, that's not something that I
Mm.
can engage with. And yet I I am changed by that. Like, when I revisit that with the awareness that I am revisiting nostalgia, with the awareness that it is not something I can return to, but it is something that I can still appreciate, then I think it's okay to engage in it.
Mhm.
I think it's
Yeah, like nostalgia. There is no, like, nostalgia for nostalgia sake. Like, I used to think that way and think of it as
yeah,
a
Yeah.
negative. Like that story is I don't agree with anymore, is BS or whatever. So I can't enter
yeah,
into
Mhm.
that anymore. But there's nothing wrong with just, something
yeah,
familiar because it's
yeah.
Yeah.
familiar. Like, the
Absolutely.
experience. The experience is the
Right, it's
experience.
your favorite food, like, it's okay to
Yeah.
keep eating it,
Right.
Mhm.
until
Yeah.
you have too much of it, it makes you sick. So, but I like the idea of, like, the updated, like, church 2.0, or, like, whatever, like, updating your computer
Mhm.
settings so that you can have a community.
Yeah.
But I also think it's, and maybe this is just me trying to, like, aggrandize this idea in my head, but I think it's bigger than that. I think it's backwards. I think that people already need community, obviously. I think we already gravitate toward it, and what the church was trying to do was help people find it intentionally. And I think it's flipped. I don't think it's, oh, I went to this church, I had this community, therefore I'm looking for that. I think it's, we all need community,
Mm.
and we can, kind of take it however we can siphon it down so that we can be in the same walls, and sometimes that's virtually, but
Yeah. No, that
I've been thinking a lot about that sort of thing, the community part in that. Um, I'll go with this one. You guys can probably relate to this. I don't know. Like 5 or 6 years into Nashville, it seemed like all of my friends were buying motorcycles and cruising on the country roads. And, like, I mean,
Yeah.
motorcycles are cool. I mean, like, from a little kid, I like that ethos of, like, the cool person
Leather
on the
jacket, yeah.
motorcycle was a real thing. And
Yeah.
totally. And then you get into, like, vintage bikes and all the aesthetics, and, like, it starts, pulling all these, like, artistic things and historical things that I just thought was cool. But I could never do it for a number of reasons. But what I recognize as I was, like, thinking about it, like, one of the biggest bummers of not buying a bike when, like, all my friends and buddies were doing that was I recognized, I'm missing out on just the
Yeah.
community side. That, what I mean? Like, a couple times a month, all these people that I love, that I care about, that I like to be around are all.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And by not doing this thing, I don't get to
Right.
be a part of that group, and that's everything. Like, if you're a smoker,
Yep.
if you're a golfer, if
Yeah.
you're, like, so I'm like, man, like, part of this, like, human experience is just, like, you gotta figure out what club you wanna be a
Yeah. No,
part
totally.
of
Yeah.
to hang out with the people you wanna hang
And
out with,
stick with that. Yeah.
What is worth the dues? Yeah.
Yeah.
Right, yeah. Totally.
Yeah.
Totally, and hopefully it's something that you appreciate and
Yeah.
you care about, but I've absolutely been. I mean, I grew up and had been a part of so many churches, and I would recognize there would al I don't know, right now I can see a bunch of faces of just older people in the church that, like, this was their club. Like, this is, their world had gotten really small, like, family either moved away or died, and, like, this was a place to create community and for them to come
Yes.
alive. And like I said, they can be the YMCA, they can be the Jewish Community Center, they can
So
be
many
a
different
number
things.
of things, but it creates a really, vital, like you said, deep need that, we wanna be in community and be around other people.
Yeah. No, I think relating to that, we play a lot of house concerts, and it's an interesting thing with house concerts because, generally, there's an older demographic, and in the 13 years we've been doing this band, it seems like house concerts are only getting smaller, and, like, we used to have, like, it wasn't a abnormal thing for there to be 50, 60 people at these shows, and, now it's like house concert hosts are having trouble getting people to come out, and they're a lot of them are sort of aging out of the ability to host shows, um, and so, I don't know, like,
Are you
they
reliving your church childhood?
well, yeah, in some ways,
Yeah.
but I think the difference is that so many times house concert hosts will ask us, "Where are all the people your age?" And, like, "Why are there no young people here?"
Because they're all working and raising kids.
Exactly, yeah. Because they
'Cause they have 5 jobs.
in this economy, who can afford a concert? And, um, and so I don't
They're enjoying the house they're paying rent or paying a mortgage
Exactly.
on. They're like, "I pay enough just to sit in this house all
I
day.
know.
I'm not going
Exactly.
anywhere."
Um, but, yeah, I think the beauty of these, religious, services and religious communities is that there is sort of this built-in, um, uh, this built-in regeneration, and, like,
You mean people are gonna keep getting old?
people are gonna keep getting old, and hopefully their children are also going to, continue in that
Yeah.
community, which in some ways is also the thing that I have trouble with about those
Yes.
religious communities
Yeah.
is, but, anyway, I think what I'm trying to say is, the intergenerational element is really is something that we feel like we lack a lot of. Like we miss,
Mm.
going to church and seeing people our own age, seeing people younger than us, older than us, and, it's, uh, that's just
Yeah.
that is a kind of a beautiful thing that
Yeah, no, what you're saying is so true because so many of our systems from school, I mean, from daycare to college, you're essentially, your social group is all within a particular age range of you. And then even the way most companies work, it's like, it's all about like climbing this hierarchical ladder that you hope, or most of the time, does correspond in some way to age. So it's like, there's not a lot of spaces to actually get the beauty and the depth of spending time with people that essentially aren't the same as you, or aren't having the same experience at the same time in their life as you. And there's something rich to that, for sure.
I think we kind of lucked out moving into the community that we moved into, because there is a lot of intergenerational interaction, and we have a lot of like, it is a true like very New England community where like there's not a lot going on. Like we have to drive 45 minutes to get to a restaurant, but like everybody shows up for town hall events, and it is people of all ages, and it is very much these I don't know. I feel very fortunate, and I feel like in a lot of ways, like you're talking about like people of special interests, and that's how you join those clubs. And I think what we have found here is that we've lucked out into like the only club is the geographical location. And I would love to see more of that. I feel like this is what I had always craved as a kid, and this is what I've like kind of fallen into by luck. And people are like, our part of our record, one of the songs on it actually talks about how our community, when we mentioned briefly that we didn't want to that we wanted to plant a garden this year, but we couldn't because we were going to be on tour, like several people from the community came and planted us a garden so that when we came back we had a garden. Like, who does that? Like, where do we live? And it's people of all, I don't know. They would do that for anyone here too. It's not just because we're like these, plucky folk singers who don't know how to plant a beat,
Yeah.
Sure.
We only know how to plant.
Yeah, there's something really just
60.
Let's get that on. Let's get on the record. Let's get on the record right now. We need to write a song about that, our farming abilities. No, you speak to something that I've been feeling too, like living in a smaller town now. There's something really disarming about the whole, right? Like, because politics is so messy and has been for so long, and it's, and legitimately there's so many things backwards with it and ridiculous. It's like such a show. And so it's easy to get overwhelmed and disenchanted with it, everything. And so it's interesting to be in a smaller space where everything is really just zoomed in, and what is politics is understood in such a different way, because instead of it always being about the messaging and the stories and just all the mess that politics is, it's like you can actually see and talk and interact with the issues that are actually concerning you in a small community. And there's something, I don't know, for all that small rural towns have been ostracized or criticized for. There's something so immediate about what's happening in those communities. I found it to be really, really powerful and really challenging to my own assumptions, and the way that I have my biases.
Yeah. So, same.
Yeah, it's like there's something in there. Like, it's like, how do you, like, is there any way to ship that into the bigger cities or bigger understanding of politics? I don't know. Like, I don't know if it's just a problem of size, of scale that, like, as you grow, things just get, more challenging and
well,
messier.
And that's the isolation too, right? That we were talking about is like the generational isolation is happens. Like, it's harder to isolate yourself from the generations when you're in a smaller community because your community is small. So you're going to have to interact with everybody.
If you don't see Bob like for a weekend, then you're like, what's going on?
Right. Exactly. Yeah. So I'm sure we could bottle it, put a good, label on it and sell it in the cities.
At Whole Foods.
At Whole Foods. Community.
I think we could go Costco. I think we could go bigger. We need more volume. Yeah. Come on. We really got to move
community size bag.
Oh my goodness. Okay, so what did your um tell me about your sister's reaction to the song, to the
Yeah.
So
record?
we sent it to her. We
We
sent
sent her
her
the song
like
in particular. I don't
yeah.
think she's heard the whole record yet,
No,
actually.
yeah. No, we
We
haven't
sent
sent
her a
it.
couple of songs.
But we sent her the
Atheist Sister song.
the Atheist Sisters
After
song.
we recorded it. So we had played it for people, and I kept texting her and saying, "Just so you know, I played your song tonight and people love it." And she's like, "Oh no." Like she just like would not like engage. She was not taking the bait at all.
So we sent it to her, and like 2 days go by and she doesn't say anything. We said, "Hey, have you listened to the song yet?" She goes, "I'm scared.
I'm scared. I don't want to listen to
like
it."
like and we're like, it's not a bad thing.
It's not a
Like
bad
it's not
thing.
yeah, it's not
And
it,
she was so
Yeah.
because she was like, "That's what I'm afraid of, is that it's not a bad thing. Is that, like, I have such a hard time," like, she was like, I'm afraid it's going to be too glossy, or it's gonna be, like, it's gonna say something so good about me that I'm not gonna believe it." And which is, you know,
Mm.
well,
that's the struggle.
that's the struggle.
Like I think as much as this album is about unbelief, and like we joke that it's a song, or it's an album of, songs of faith for the faithless, and songs of doubt for the faithful. And like as much as it's about those things, I really do believe it's about belief, and it's about you know like how do you tell people I believe in you?
Mhm.
How do you tell yourself like I believe in myself? How do you like actually convince yourself that that you can do the things that you say you want to do?
Mhm.
And I don't know, I think that's the struggle right now. As the election's on our mind, and all of that, it's like we um how do we get people to listen to these songs and think, I believe in humanity. I believe that we can do really good things.
Mhm. She did eventually listen to it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
isn't that
Yeah, she did.
okay. Well, I wanna hear more of your reaction, but, like, what you
Mhm.
just said, Scott, really resonates with me because I think that's one of the things that is so unfortunate about, the political
Yeah.
landscape is it's so
Yes.
Right.
disempowering, right? You think that everyone's messaging is if you don't make this choice or vote for this person, vote for that policy, then everything's going to hell and
Right.
we're
Yeah.
screwed,
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
know? Like you have no ability of your own power in your own community, in your own, just immediate world to make any change
Right.
in your life. And yet, all of it's like we could just sit here and come up with a list of all of the individual people that started
Yeah.
movements or were change makers, and they just all started with their own power, what they had, immediately
Yeah.
where they were at the time.
Absolutely.
So yeah, I love
Yeah.
that. Okay, but more to
Yeah.
your Mal, you were saying about your sisters. No, I want to
Yeah,
get more
yeah,
of
so
the full reaction.
she listened to it finally because we told her, we're like, "We actually will not proceed with this record until you approve of this, because I feel really weird putting this out if you do not approve of this."
Yeah, you
Like,
kind of have
so,
to. Yeah,
but
yeah.
she finally listened to it. She listened to it with her son, my nephew, and, she loved it. And she was like, "Thank you for including the
That's great.
doxology." She's like, "That's the most important part to me, is that you included the doxology."
And then she
That's
goes, um,
amazing.
but so I have a few questions. Mallory, you're a believer?
That's the first
And
thing
that
she
was
said.
the
Wait a second.
wait a second.
Let's
Yeah.
talk about that.
Which
Yeah.
was a fun
It
conversation.
was a
So,
fun
yeah.
conversation, and it can be, I think, the third thing was that my nephew Eisen had a complaint about it because he said that his mother has no friends. So but he's also 15 and a total
Yeah,
turd.
yeah.
Ouch. Ouch.
But my niece Saffron, so my sister, after she listened, she loves it. Like she was like, it was the right amount of snarky, it was the right amount of true, and she's like, you didn't
Yeah.
you didn't over, like, I didn't sanctify her in any way, it was still. But my niece actually had this profound reaction, like I think she felt really empowered by it, because in the song we talk about, my sister having her kids, but in one of the verses in particular, we say that she goes to fight for equal rights for her daughter. And And my sister said that every time that line would come up, my niece would just kind of sit up and kind of look wistfully into the distance, like, that's me. I'm the daughter.
I'm the daughter.
It was just so sweet.
That is that's a gift. That's awesome. I love that. I love that. No, I mean, everything that we're talking about, everything that the record entails and the songs, it points to the fact that like mystery and the searching is really kind of like where all the juice is, I mean, because you can even talk about like whatever faith tradition you're from, like even in like Jesus story, it's like he goes off in the deserts and he's tempted by Satan. Like they're like every tradition has their person going through some sort of struggle, going through some sort of doubt or challenge, and yet the followers of all these systems and spiritual superheroes are somehow like somehow it's we've all got the notion that there's perfection. And you have to be completely assured of whatever you believe, and you have to execute it perfectly. And it's strange that a system talking about the mystery and the challenges of these experiences. It's not somehow it doesn't translate. And we think when we are having the doubts or the questions or the struggles that creates some that means that there's some lack inside us, and yet it's actually aligning us with whoever we're following.
Absolutely.
Scott and I have been saying that we heard a talk recently, and we loved this analogy of like, it is the job of the artists and the poets to like, everybody has their room and they have their papers lined up on their desk, and it is the job of the artist and the poet to walk into the room and just to open the window and walk out again and let the papers fly around. Let everything get a little bit mystical, a little chaotic. And I think I feel like we did that with this record, not setting out to do it. We still did it. And I know that we did it because we feel the mystery more on the other side of it. I think what is so different about this record is we walked into it feeling kind of unsure and being a little less sure at the end of it. Like, as opposed to like, oh, and now it's done and it's created. At the end, we were still like, we were moved differently.
Oh yeah. And like, I think that what's interesting about like embracing the mystery is that like you come to a real like sense of gratefulness for that story, for that mystery. Like, I feel extremely grateful that we have that we have this record, that we got to go through the process of making this record and, finding these songs. And
we cried a lot.
We did. Yeah. It was a really moving experience.
No, I am curious. Well, I want to hear, okay, we're going to talk about crying a lot first, but what you just said about artistry is also something that I've heard, and recognized in a lot of different spiritual teachers and traditions. And honestly, even like when I think of my own life and a good teacher, there's like all these stories of these like Indian gurus of Westerners coming to try to learn their ways, and the headline is, you found a good teacher when they send you on your way to essentially find your own path. Like a good teacher doesn't make you stay with them for the rest of your life because you don't because of some lack in you, or because you don't have something that they have attained. They actually send you off and kind of push you out of the nest, so to speak. And I love what you said about artistry too. It's like the same thing. It's like, I'm not gonna just give you everything on a silver platter for you to be able to easily digest it. I'm gonna actually shake things up a little bit, ask you to do some soul searching and question some things inside you, and then figure out how you process this and interpret, this piece of work. But let's talk about crying. No, I am curious. I mean, we've been talking about the whole time that how this is a personal, a really personal record in a lot of ways. Did every song feel that personal, or like were you able to create distance? Like, just tell me about, like, I'm sure that's as I'm saying that, I'm like, I'm sure it was a back and
Yeah.
forth sort of thing, like where you're outside the songs and then you're in it and feeling it. So tell me
Yeah,
about
I
that.
think we are still creating distance, honestly. Like, yeah,
Okay.
there are certain times, like this is a hard album for me to sing out. Like I have to like focus my attention like in the foreheads of our audience members and like make sure I don't get to their eyes ever, or else I'm gonna lose it, you know? And
See, it just makes me turn to stone.
yeah.
Human interaction.
Well, they would be really, it feels like a very vulnerable record to be singing, meaning, I mean, I'm sure it's stirring something inside of you. It would be also, I know I would be like concerned with how people are
Yeah.
receiving it. Like, are they gonna like think less of me, or if I'm like, are they gonna be like, who's gonna come after the show and be pissed
Right.
off, you know, and like, you know, argue
Yeah.
with me about it? I'm sure there's all sorts of things going on
Yeah.
inside.
Yeah, and I think we're still unpacking what those sorts of things are. Like we're still
Mm.
trying to figure out, like Scott said, it's an album of doubt for the faithful and however you use
And
it,
faith for the
faith for the
faithless. Yeah.
faithless. But like even when we present it that way, I'm like, no, that's not the record. That's not the record. And we haven't found our script for it, which I think is a really good sign.
Yeah.
I think the fact that we haven't been able to like canonize it in any way, like with our banter, is a really, really good sign that we're onto something. We're onto something authentic for us.
Yeah, and I think what it means is we're continuing to pull stories from from our own experiences to try and describe what this album is and like what these songs are about. And yeah, I mean, like because these songs aren't all about like just one thing. They're about, they're trying to be about everything and trying to um kind of sum up everything in some ways.
Would you say like all things to all men?
All things to all men, yeah.
Well, good art does that in the sense that like it keeps working on you, right? Like it evolves and it grows with you, and you're always piecing out and pulling apart new things. So, I mean, it makes sense that that the process is still happening.
I think we just didn't think it was, well, maybe I kind of did know. I started this year like kind of being insistent on my own vulnerability and kind of unpacking some of the grief that I had like let compound, because sometimes you have to do that. Like sometimes in order to survive, you have to like shield yourself from your own emotions, your own grief. And I knew that this was a year that I would be safe enough to start unpacking that again. So I think I knew going into this record that it was going to feel vulnerable and that I was going to start, but it was like, it hurt so good. Like, it was like, I feel like a teenager again in like emotionally speaking, but now I also have the tools to be able to like siphon those feelings without, letting them come out sideways on myself or other people. And so I think the excitement of this record is that it is incredibly vulnerable, but it doesn't feel erratic. It feels very, very helpful. Very, very good.
Yeah. Oh my goodness. Well, this has been so much fun to talk to you.
I hope you really believe that. No, it has.
Oh, it's so good. So good. I
great.
wish we could see you and your family.
I know.
I know. Next time you're on the left coast of
that'd be great.
things, I mean, gotta figure it out, because I would love to see you
It's
guys.
always a party. I do want to apologize because I'm pretty sure our dog snored and made noises the entire way through this. So if you have a dog filter.
I'm just impressed that we didn't see them at all. I was like half expecting them to be on the couch with you. I know how it goes. Yeah. I've made records with the extra band members, so I know all about it. Yeah. Well, let's do the official website, Instagram. Where's the best way for people to stay connected with you?
www.theroughandtumble.com. Yes.
You nailed it.
And we're just the Rough and Tumble on Facebook
and
Instagram and all those other places. The album comes out November 24th.
It's a Sunday morning. It is also my sister's birthday.
Yeah.
Perfect. Well, I feel so lucky that I got to listen to this record before it came out. I'm like so excited for you all.
Thanks, Nolan.
Yeah.
For everyone to hear it. And yeah, gosh, please, if you get any really interesting, maybe we should, I don't know. Like, I want to talk to you after the record comes out just to find out how it's been received. Probably like, a month or so after, but I don't know. I'm excited to see
what
we are too.
Does and how people take to it.
Nervously excited.
Yeah.
We'll start texting you our weird stories for sure. Yeah.
You need to. This is a sort of the thing, though. Like, if in the spring you're doing a church tour,
right? Like,
and all of these, because there's all sorts of interesting, spaces out there that are for people that are either, still in a denomination or in a particular, place, or they've created their own path. Like, if you all were doing a church tour in the spring, it would not be surprising at all. And my gosh, the stories that will come out of that would be fascinating.
Oh man, your mom will be so proud.
Oh, my mom will be so proud. She always wanted me to go back to church, so this will be wonderful.
It's always so much fun to talk to you too. Thanks for making the time. Yeah, good to see you.
Yeah.